In this video, I'm going to be showing you the exact format I used to create my book cover. This format have actually worked very well for me because I've used it to generate a lot of sales for myself on Amazon KDP. This format is not about the design software that you're using. You can actually use any design software you want. You can use this same format for any niche you are going to, especially in the low content and no content niches. So we are going to start from the beginning and we're going to build up everything step by step. So this video is going to be a bit different from my previous videos because I'm going to be using this board to teach it. Now, the first thing we are going to do is that we are going to start from the definition so that everybody can follow along. Now, let me just draw how a book cover looks like. So let's imagine that this is a 12 times 6 inches, right? So let's imagine that this is a 12 times 6 inches. Now, this is our front cover. So let me just make a division here. Now, this is our front cover. Then this is our back cover, right? So remember that there is usually a spine here. Okay, so if this book now, for example, the front, this is the back, then this is the spine, right? So now this is where we're talking about. We're talking about the spine here. So now what we're trying to do is that we're trying to discover the best format we can use so that we can easily just get book covers that is going to sell. Now, the format is this. Let's start from the spine. We'll start from the spine. Now, usually a lot of people ignore their spine, the spine of the book, but I personally don't like ignoring mine. So let's imagine that this is the spine of our book. Now, the format I usually use is that I have at this particular point, from this point to this point, I usually write the book title, right? So the book title is usually at this point. And at this point here, I usually write the brand name or the author name. So sometimes I might change it up, and depending on how it's going to be, I might change it up. And if this back to my spine, I'm going to put the title here. And down here, I'm going to put the author name. So the reason why you are doing this is simply because you want people, when they are shelving their books, if they are looking for your book, they can easily just find your book because you have already put the title here. Now, it's not all books that can fall into this category because some books are usually very slim. So the size of your spine depends on the page length. So if you have a lot of pages in your book, the spine is going to be wider. If you have very few pages in your book, the spine is going to be smaller. And also remember that when you are writing, make sure you don't write across it. There's always a line in your book cover that you're not supposed to cross. So just write within that part. And sometimes some people just leave it blank or empty and just let it go. For me, it's just for shelving purposes. Amazon is not going to show the customers when they want to buy if there's something on the spine or not. But that is the best format for the spine that I actually use. So let's go to the back cover. Now imagine that this is actually the back cover. The first thing we are supposed to know is that, of course, at this point there is the barcode, right? So this point is the barcode. Nothing is supposed to be around this point, so you just let it be, except you already have your own barcode and you want to put it there. That's when you can do that. But if you don't have your own barcode, then there's nothing necessarily that is supposed to be there. Now, the first thing you want to have in the front at this point is usually the book title, right? So the title is what you want to have at this particular point. Now, after the title, you now also want to have some parts of your description along this place, not everything, right? So this place you have some part of your description. So just write description here. So this part, you have some part of your description there. At this point, what we want to have here is actually our brand story, right? So the story of the brand, how the brand came to be. So it's just usually very short. So what you're trying to do is that you're trying to promote your brand so that people can get to know what the brand is for. So a brief story, what the brand stands for, everything, that is what you are going to have here. Just usually like maybe 3 lines or 2 lines maximum to talk about your brand. Then after that, the next thing you are going to have here is some pictures. Here, I'll just put 3 here. Usually I just leave 3. Now, the front cover of your previous books that you already have on Amazon is what you are going to have there, right? So that's what you are going to put there for your back cover. So you have the front cover for your book, your previous book. So that's what you are going to have here. So first book here, second book here, third book here. If you don't have up to 3, you can just put 1. And the point is that when you do another book, make sure you come back and review your cover and do the same thing here. right? Very, very important. So this is actually the simplest format, and I realize that this actually works very well for me. So if you are doing any kind of book whatsoever, you can actually use this formula and it's going to work very well for you. So now that we are done with this one, let's now go to the next one, which is the front cover, and that is like the most important part of your book. Okay, so now for the front cover, I'm just going to draw the front cover here, which is, as I said earlier, the most important part of your book. Now, this is what people actually see on Amazon, and this is what is going to make people want to buy your book or not. Usually, I would like to divide my front cover into 3 aspects, right? So this part is the first, this is the middle, and this is the bottom. So this is the top, this is the middle, this is the bottom. Usually what I want to do is that at these different parts, there are usually the things I put there so that it's just going to be easy. Let's start with the bottom. For the bottom, usually what I want to have around this point, some writings around this point, is the brand name, right? The brand name. Now, if you have the brand name here, so the brand name or the author name is what you want to have here. Some people actually put their brand name at the top. And the only reason I'll permit you to put your brand name at the top is if your brand is already known. Because there are some books that what sells them is the brand name, not the book itself, right? So if your book, your brand name is already known, then you can now start selling more with your brand name. So you can put it here. But at this point, if you are just starting out, it's better to have it here. Now, at this particular point, what you want to have is that you want to have some sub images, right? If you are doing a coloring book, you want to have some sub images around this place. That is, these are images that are not the main images. That's what you want to have here. But if you are not doing a coloring book, what you want to have here is some benefits and features, right? So you just have some benefits here. So the benefits of the book, you just have them in writing. Sometimes it mustn't be in writing. Sometimes it can be in some form of illustrations of the benefits of the book around this point. So that's where you want to have it. Now for this part, this is usually the place that people actually see the most. So you want to have the most important details around this particular part. This number 2, the middle here, and the top here. Now for the middle here, what do you want to have here? For the middle here, you want to have your main image, right? So usually if you are doing a book, there's usually a main image in any niche whatsoever. So there is usually a main image. So this is where you want to put your main image here. Then for this point, what you want to have here is actually your title, right? So your title usually takes the most part of this particular point. Then at this point, you now have your subtitle, right? So this point you have your subtitle. Then this point you have your title. So your title is usually going to take most of the points. Sometimes your subtitle might be very, very small. Some people actually have their subtitles around this point, right? So in this point, usually what I do is that I let my title take the major point of this place. You might want to have some features around this space. So for example, if it is a large print, you want to have large print written down here. If it's, let's say, maybe like you had 100 images there, you can actually have it here. If it's a revised, if it's an edition, whatever, sometimes you have some of this at this particular point. Some people put it at this point. Some even people put it at this point. So usually I prefer putting mine at this particular point. So whatever design software you're using, whether you're using Canva, you're using Photoshop, you're using InDesign or Illustrator, whatever you're using to design, you can actually use this format, and it has worked a lot for me, and this is what I've been using. If you have not already subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button right now. One of the easiest way to sell more books on Amazon KDP is actually putting your books on Pinterest. Pinterest has actually been a very good way to generate more sales for yourself on Amazon KDP. So if you want to know exactly how you can use Pinterest to generate sales for yourself, you should watch this video here where I show you the exact step-by-step process that you can actually use to use Pinterest to generate sales for yourself on Amazon KDP.